Good morning, Leah Shaw here. So I want to talk a little bit about exact measurements, exact placement, exact numbers. Sorry, just waiting for the truck to go by. So one thing that I'm beginning to learn is Dominicans aren't really big on exact. They're okay with approximate, roundabout, close. So I'm going to give you two examples, and it's two things that one has been driving me totally crazy, and the other one I sort of know how to deal with now, so it's not a big deal. So the first one, if you've seen any of my previous videos, you know that I've had this ongoing issue with the actual boundary lines of my property. 2 years ago, when it was originally purchased, there was 14 markers put around the entire perimeter by a surveyor. So using obviously GPS markers, and I was given a map to those markers. 2 years later, now I'm ready to build the wall. A lot of the markers over the last 2 years had been disrupted, just disappeared because they really weren't permanent structures. And so I had a second guy come. It seems like that guy's machine might have been out by, we're thinking 1.3 meters, because all of a sudden all these lines that we thought we had changed by 1.3 meters. So, fast forward, we think we know where the lines are, and literally they're back to the original lines. Like, this second guy that came out, I don't know if his machine was just out of whack that day, if it wasn't calibrated properly, but I have to go back to 2 years ago when we bought the property. Those measurements are correct. The alignment is correct. So that's what we're going with, and some of the markers we had put in. So, and talking to the developer, it's been very frustrating, because for him, he's like, oh, okay, well, if that's close, then that's good. I'm like, well, dude, there's a neighboring property. I don't want to build a wall, and the neighbor all of a sudden comes to me and he's like, you're on my property. So it does make a big difference. So I guess the saving grace at this point in time is the one line that I have been sort of in limbo about connects to the neighbor's property, and the neighbor is the developer. So if at the end of the day it's not right, I can just turn to him and say, this is what you gave me. So that one, as frustrating as that's been, I think we've kind of hammered out exactly where the property lines are, and they're digging the rest of the trenches today. So the other thing that I came across where exact wasn't a big deal is at the Ferreteria. So this is the building supply store where I'm getting all the materials, building materials. So I had given them a deposit of 150,000 pesos. That works out to be, I don't know, just over $2,000 or something like that. So, and then, have been deducting items off of that amount as we go. And, I have been keeping track. Like, when I get a packing slip and I put a value on the materials on that packing slip, and I deduct it from the deposit. So I had sent the contractor the other day to the Ferreteria. I still had a 43,000 peso credit at the Ferreteria. Sent him to get product that's about 20,000. So about half of what I still had there as a credit. And they're like, no, she doesn't have any more credit here. So I'm like, that's not right. So of course now I've got to pack my crap up and go back over to the Ferreteria. I sit down in front of the guy, and he's like, oh, hi, how are you? He's like, so what's going on? I'm like, so here's my numbers. And I show him, and he's like, oh yeah, you're correct. I'm like, okay, so I have a 43,000 peso credit here. He's like, yeah, you've got the right numbers. So I'm like, okay. So clearly when, he just, in his mind, he thought he had the numbers, and he thought I'd spent all the money. And then when the guy came in, he doesn't bother checking. There is no record keeping. And I now know that there is no record keeping, because the second time I went in to say, okay, I now need this, which was yesterday, 2 truckloads of sand. He's like, oh, show me your book. I need to know how much of a credit you still have. So now he's just relying on my numbers. So I guess at the end of the day, that works. Anyway, peace out. Have a great day.